going to look at kernels. So we motivated kernels by stating in our last lecture that it would be awesome if I give a sequential program to a compiler and tell it go compile it the way you want, and then it does some magic and finds out what are the parallel portions in this particular code and tries to parallelize those and taking care of all the dependencies, etc. As far as correctness of the program is, that gets maintained and so on. So if that happens, then definitely that's going to be very useful. You'll be able to tell your boss that okay, in one day I parallelize this code and it's all working fine. Right? So kernels is such a construct which will help us achieve such a thing, right? So you can try it on your boss. Let's see. So the idea, basic idea behind OpenACC is also, apart from parallelism, is also to improve programmer productivity. One of the downsides of using a different language or an extension of a language such as CUDA is that you need to code up a lot when it comes to parallel programming in OpenMP, in CUDA. Whereas in OpenACC or OpenMP, it becomes a little easier. I mean, that is by design that the programmer should be able to specify things a little more easily. The reason being that many times people who parallelize programs are not always, um let's say, let me put it this way, that they are not always a good HPC programmers, right? So, or not always parallel programmers. So we have different domain experts from different areas like chemistry, physics, molecular biology, materials engineering, could be civil engineering, could be any other. It could be even a sub branch of, for example, computer science. But that doesn't mean that the person is equipped to write parallel code in, so to say, low level programming language. There is also another side. I mean, there are times when the person is a novice HPC programmer. Right? So the person understands a little bit about parallelism, but is not equipped to understand many things related to the hardware. I mean, why should I worry about, say, uh, how automobile engineering works if I want to ride a scooter, right? So that could be one argument which one can give. Of course, if you know automobile engineering, you might be able to take care of your scooter much better. But in a similar manner, it all depends upon how much you want to extract parallelism out of your program. And if it so happens that you will be able to get good enough performance by using these pragma constructs, why do you need to really worry about getting into very low level details such as in CUDA programming? So these are the thoughts which come up, and these are not arbitrary thoughts. These come up much more often than one might think about, and therefore we need to worry about programmability of the code as well. So we would like to reduce the burden onto the programmer's part, and if the burden on the programmer part needs to get reduced, somebody else has to do, and let that somebody else be a piece of software which essentially is going to be compiler in this case. So the compiler tries to identify which parts are going to be parallelizable, which parts are going to be beneficial, and which parts it should not touch from the perspective of parallelization to actually improve the performance. Right? So this the compiler has to do. If the programmer is going to specify everything, then the compiler becomes more or less straightforward, or relatively straightforward, let me put it this way. So that will not be the case for OpenMP, OpenACC kind of compilers. These compilers have to be very smart. They have to do more processing compared to what parallel processing system has to, or a language corresponding to that has to do. So let's see how that kernel's directive is going to help us achieve this. So the directive is relatively much simple. So what I'm going to do, and this is very similar to the sections construct in OpenMP, where I specify different parts of the code as sections, and then those sections can be executed in parallel. Here I'm going to specify it in a similar manner, but having it in a single kernels block. So hash pragma acc kernels is going to give me one block, and then that block of code is a suggestion to the compiler that I would like to parallelize this code. This code may contain loops or may contain some parallel code, or it may also contain some sequential code. And the compiler's job is to figure out which parts are likely to be parallelizable, helpful from the perspective of performance, and parallelize only those and leave the remaining parts sequential. Where does that sequential part get executed? We'll come to that. It could be executed on the CPU, that is host, or it could be executed on the GPU or the accelerator or the device. Now in this case, there are two for loops, and both these for loops are separated by the printfs, right? So there are these three printfs. And by looking at the code, at least manually, we understand that the printfs are going to be individual, which are sequential codes essentially, whereas the for loops are nicely parallel, embarrassingly parallel. And therefore, you would like to convert these, manually, I would convert these for loops into parallel codes, which should be executed on the GPU. So we anticipate that, assuming that the array is array need not be initialized, so that initialization is happening in parallel. So 0 to 10, so we assume that the array is declared appropriately. So 0 to 10 elements get 0 to 9 elements get 0 to 9 values. Then I print a of 9, right, on the in the sequential manner, right, using a single printf. So this is different from the parallel construct, where you might have, in the sense that the number of threads with which different portions of this code, different parallel portions of this code get executed, the number of thread blocks, the number of gangs and the number of workers, etc., those will remain fixed. Whereas in the sections case, the number of gangs and the number of workers within the gang, etc., that can change across these for loops. Essentially, when those get converted into parallel, those are going to get executed as a kernel. We also call that as a kernel, which is the function which is executing on the accelerator. So the values might differ, although in this case it is going to generate, it only requires 10 threads to execute it. So it is going to create some number of threads which will suffice for its purpose. In this case, it's going to be 32 threads. We'll come to why it generates 32 threads as well. But let's say the second loop would have been, let's say, ii less than 100, then it would have probably generated more number of threads. So that is possible inside kernel. So individual loops are essentially independently let me put it that. So given this particular code, we expect that the output is going to be, okay, let's first understand the sequential output. The sequential output is going to be, it prints 1, then it initializes the a of I to 0 to 9, then it prints a of 9 equal to 9, right? Then it multiplies each number by 2, and then again it prints a of 9 in the third printf, which is going to be 18 in this case. So we expect that output to be present for both the sequential and likely to be in parallel also, because in the parallel setting there is no printing happening in the for loops, and these three printfs are anyway going to get executed in that order. So the output, as we expect, turns out to be, even in the parallel setting, it turns out to be exactly the same as we anticipate in the sequential setting, and that seems to be working fine according to our expectations. But this is a little misleading, and I'll come to why. We'll change this program a little bit to see why this is a little misleading. So for that, we have to understand that one thing which we have to always keep in mind is that both CPU and GPU are going to execute these codes. It's not only the case that only GPU is going to execute these codes. And CPU and GPU are running asynchronously. So these things we have to keep in mind, and then things will be relatively easy to understand. All right, so just to kind of recap, the compiler splits these kernel regions, the two for loops or even for loops and the printfs, into a sequence of steps. There are 5 steps in this case, the 3 printfs and 2 for loops. Some parts are sequential, some are parallel. Typically, each for loop or the nested for loop gets converted into a kernel. That is a typical case, but that is not the complete story, and we'll come to that. And the kernels get executed in order, which means that a of I equals I, this statement is guaranteed to be finished for each I before a of I star equal to 2 happens for any of the other, which means that there is a kind of barrier between these two. So that is to say that the first kernel meaning the kernel corresponding to the first for loop is going to finish completely. All the threads are going to finish execution. Then only any iteration of the second kernel is going to start, right? So this should be kept in mind. So these kernels get executed in order. There are ways in which you can do other things, but I think that will make the story more complicated. So for now, we'll assume that all the kernels are executed in order. Note that we didn't say anything about the non-kernel parts, which means that there might be some parts which are non-kernels, some parts which might be executed on the host, on the CPU. So whichever gets converted into, for example, just to give you an example, let's say that this printf gets converted into a kernel. Now one might wonder, why would you want to convert this into a kernel? I mean, there is no parallelism in it. There is a single statement which is being printed. But remember that compiler is intelligent. So compiler can figure out something, because of which it might say that I'm going to launch this printf onto a kernel. That kernel is launched with a single gang, each containing a single worker, and each worker containing a single vector lane, which means that the kernel is launched with one thread, and that thread is anyway going to execute sequentially. Now, why would kernel do that? And we are going to study why we are going to do that on the next slide. But the important point here is that the kernel need not be only a for loop. A kernel can be a sequential statement which gets executed on the accelerator. And how does the compiler decide that? For that, we have to make the story a little bit interesting. So let's make that story a little bit interesting. I'm going to add printfs to these two for loops. So these two kernels are now going to contain printfs. So that will help us judge in which order things are happening. Okay, this is just an animation. Let me remove this. That will probably so. Different parts are sequential, parallel, sequential, parallel, sequential, right? So this is how it is happening. This has similarity with respect to, you will recall, some sort of parallelism that we talked about in OpenMP case. If someone recalls, that will be helpful. It is called as a fork join parallelism. So the threads fork here, and then they meet here. Similarly, then the sequential execution continues, then they fork again, then meet again, and again the sequential execution continues. So this is in some sense very similar to that. Yeah, just that there we were talking only about the CPU. Now we are talking about some coordination between CPU and GPU as well. Okay, so I was saying that I'm going to add some printfs to these for loops. So let me try that. So the execution continues to remain exactly the same as it was, except that I have added these printfs: printf first loop, printf second. And what is the output that I anticipate in this case? Please think about it. You can pause the video. The output that I expect is again in a similar manner, where I expect that 1 gets printed. Then I print this value 10 times, the first loop 0 to first loop 9. Then I print the value of a of 9, which is going to be 9. So 2 colon a of 9 equal to 9. Then I print second loop again, that is going to be 0 to 9. And then 3 a of 9 equal to 18. That is the value, that is the order in which I anticipate this output to be. Does it happen? Can there be some other output? Well, in this case, we are lucky, and exactly the same output happens. This output I have split across 3 to fit it onto the screen, but essentially it is 1, then first for loop, then 2, then the second loop, and then the 3. So that is the order in which it occurs, and I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to make a small change. Right? What is the change that I made? I had those printfs inside the loop, which are going to be there. But as far as I was printing that a of 9, that I have removed. Right? That is the only change which I have made. The rest of the code is exactly the same. And I anticipate that exactly the same thing should happen, that it should print 1, and it should print first loop 0 to 9, then 2, then the second loop 0 to 9, 3. Right? That is the actually the output which a sequential execution of this code is going to give me. If I don't add -acc, then it's going to execute sequentially on the CPU, and that is the output which we are expecting. On the GPU, does the when you run it using OpenACC PGCC -acc, does this same thing happen? Well, that is what I would anticipate. Interestingly, this is the output that I get. So 1, 2, 3 gets printed together meaning one after the other, without having any first loop printed, and then all the first loop things get printed, and then the second loop thing. So as far as the order between these two is concerned, that is maintained. Order between one first loop, second loop is concerned, that is maintained. But the order between this 2 and first loop, and 3 and second loop, and 3 and first loop, this has gone for a toss. And I'm a little surprised to why this would happen. And this is where we have to understand that if things would have been happening completely on the GPU or completely on the accelerator, which is a separate device, then it will never happen that this first loop will get printed after this 2. Right? And if 2 is getting printed before, that does mean that these are 2 separate devices on which the printing is happening. But well, Aqua cluster does have 2 GPUs associated, but currently we have not programmed anything for multiple devices. So the only other device which is going to be there is the host, which means first loop is being printed, because I know that this is happening in parallel. So the first loop is getting printed onto the accelerator, whereas 2 is getting printed onto the host. Then only such an output is expected. But if this is happening, then why did it not happen in the previous case? What was the previous case? The previous case was, just go back to that slide, I was printing this a of 9 equal to something. And for that, it was not getting printed before, it was printing it after the first loop got printed. That means that there is something happening. What is that something? That is being decided by this data item, which is I am accessing. And there is a dependence of this a of I being written and this a of 9 being read from the array. And that dependency is being identified by whom? By the compiler, by the PGCC compiler. PGCC is the compiler. That compiler identifies that a of 9 is getting read, which was being written in the GPU, and therefore it makes sure, for optimization purpose, that a of 9 must get print, not optimized for correctness purpose, that a of 9 must get printed after a of 9 is written here. What if I had, and okay, so that will ensure that this ordering will be maintained, and the similar ordering is getting maintained when I'm printing a of 9 here and a of 9 is getting written here, right? So that dependency is maintained and I get exactly the same order. What if I had printed a of 0? A of 0 is going to get written by the first iteration itself. Does that mean that 2, and if I'm printing a of 0 here, then that can get printed before I print I equal to 1, I equal to 2, and I equal to 9 in this loop, in the first loop? Well, in theory, it is possible. In the actual execution on the GPU, this is not going to happen because A0 to A9 are all going to get executed together. However, our theoretical concept is still valid if I increase this bound from 10 to a larger value. In that case, it is possible that some a of, let's say a of 0, first loop 0 gets printed, then first loop 1 gets printed, first loop 31 gets printed all the way up to 31, and then it's possible that 2 a of 0 equal to 0 gets printed, and after that first loop a of 32, first loop a of 33, etc. get printed. This is possible. Um, why would that happen? What is so special about 32? 32 is something called as a warp size or a worker size. That is the smallest value that a warp execution can have. That means that you can create a warp of size 32 in the sense that there are going to be 32 threads which get executed by the accelerator, by the GPU in a lockstep manner. Right? And therefore, if you have more than 32 threads, that is the gang size is more than 32 or worker size is more than 32, then there are multiple such warps or multiple such workers which can get executed in arbitrary order. These need not be in lockstep, but as far as these 32 are concerned, these are always going to get executed in lockstep fashion, and therefore 0 to 31 a of I is always going to happen together, right? Okay, so that is an aside, but yeah, so that is what is going to happen here. So when we come to this stage, this modified code, one, well, can get printed. In fact, it will get printed by the CPU itself. It will not even go to the GPU. Even in the previous case, by the way, one was getting printed by the CPU, by the host, just that we didn't realize it because that was getting printed upright. In this case, now this 2 does not have any dependence with respect to this A of I which is being written in the kernel, and therefore the compiler decides, okay, there is no dependence, let me give it to the host itself, let me give it to the CPU which is anyway sitting idle. So this printf goes to the host. This printf has already gone to the host. Similarly, this printf also goes to the host because there is no dependence on A of I. I am not reading anything. And therefore, the output turns out to be exactly 1, 2, 3, which might get printed because the GPU is busy doing some work. Right? So all these printfs are going to get so it's possible, by the way, that you can have 1, 2. You can have 1, 2 printed by the host. Then first loop 0 to 9 gets printed, and then 3 gets printed. So these 1, 2, 3 and first loop are actually happening in parallel. And there could be any order, actually. I mean, theoretically speaking, there could be any order, any kind of interleaving can happen. It's possible that first loop might get printed before, first loop 0 might get printed before even writing 1. That is also possible because these two devices, 1 and this first loop on the GPU, these are happening in asynchronous manner, in parallel. If this 1 would have been printed by the GPU, by the accelerator, then only there was a there is a guarantee that 1 will get printed, only then first loop 0 will get printed. But since these are on two different devices, any order is possible. As far as one device is concerned, let's talk about the host. The host is printing 1, 2, 3. That is guaranteed to be in that order. It will never happen that you will see the output 2, 1, 3 or 3, 2, 1 and so on. That will not happen because it's happening sequentially on the CPU. If things would have been parallel on the CPU also, for example, 1 is done by one thread, 2 is done by another thread, 3 by another thread, then even that is going to happen. But in this case, it's not going to happen that way. As far as first loop and second loop are concerned, there is a strict ordering, so that is also not a problem. As far as first loop 0 to first loop 9 are concerned, those are completely happening in parallel by 10 threads on the GPU. So they can actually get executed in any arbitrary order, but it so happens that the printfs get concatenated for warp threads or worker threads, and therefore you will always see first loop 0 to first loop 31. But if there would have been, let's say this value is 100, then there is no such guarantee. Then it's possible that the output might turn out to be that you will see first loop 96, 97, 98, 99, and then first loop 0. That is possible because these threads are, or workers are, executing in parallel. And the same thing applies to the second printf also. Right? So I hope this part is clear, that why we are seeing 1, 2, 3 first and then first loop 0. But again, this is a behavior which you observe on Aqua cluster or your GPU, but that doesn't mean that this is the only behavior possible. This interleaving of this particular output and this particular output can be arbitrary because these are executing on two different devices. That should be understood. All right. So let's add more complications to this. So what I'm going to do is to now go back to one of our codes where I had that dependence, and let's see what happens. So I'm going to add that dependency only for the second printf and not the third one. So now you should possibly pause the video again and think about what the output will be for this particular code. Okay, so let's try to analyze this code. Right? So this one, we said that is likely to be printed by the host. So it will print it there. This part is happening on the GPU, so that is also okay. This part we said is that the compiler is intelligently deciding that this A of 9 is being referred to. It can print A of 9 onto the CPU. The execution can decide that A of 9 can print on the CPU, and if that happens, then 1, then first loop of 0 to 9 are going to get printed, then 2 A of 9 equal to 9, that will get printed by the CPU. Why would that be printed after 1? Because it is happening in the CPU itself, in the host itself. But why will it print after first loop of 9 is printed? Is because there is a data dependence. Right? So there is a strict dependence from 1 to 2 as well as from first loop to 2. Right? As far as 1 and first loop are concerned, there is no dependence between them. Okay, if that happens, that will be nice. But what the compiler can figure out is that, well, CPU memory is separate than GPU memory. And therefore, why should I copy A of 9 all the way to CPU? I can as well run a kernel sequentially on the GPU after this first loop kernel is over, and then I can print the value sequentially on the GPU itself. I don't need to copy it back to the host. This decision was taken by the compiler from performance perspective. It can take the decision either way. It can say that I'm going to copy A of 9 to the host, or I'm going to keep A of 9 onto the GPU and just print it using a sequential kernel. If that happens, if the compiler decides to print A of 9 onto the GPU itself, then there is a sequential dependency between first loop kernel and the second kernel, which is printing 2. However, in that case, the host, which is printing 1, does not have dependency on this 2. if 2 is getting printed by the GPU, right? So this dependency doesn't exist, which means that the host or the CPU is currently printing only 1 and it has no other work so far until this point. Okay, so the CPU is printing 1 and GPU is printing first loop 0 to 9, and after that 2, a of 9 equal to 9. Okay, now let's come to the second for loop. Second for loop again is going to happen in parallel. It's going to launch some set of gangs, some set of workers, some set of vector lengths. In this case, it's going to be exactly 10, right? Although 10 are going to get executed, but it will launch 32 because that is the minimum that is going to happen. Then it will print second loop. Now, is there a dependence with respect to this printing of second loop and this printing of a of 9? As far as a of 9 being read here and a of 9 being read and written, this is star equal to, so it is being read as well as written, there is a dependence. But there is no dependence with respect to printing of a of 9 and printing of the second loop, because I am just using the value of II. However, this particular printf is being done by the thread on the GPU that has to happen, that has to satisfy or respect the sequential dependency within the thread, and therefore a of II star equal to 2 must be over for each thread II before it goes to the printf. And therefore, so this particular, okay, let me change the color. This particular dependence is control dependence. There is nothing that is being written in the first statement which is being read in the second statement, but still the thread has to do the printf after a of I star equal to 2 is done for that particular II. This, so there is no data dependence across the two, but there is control dependence. It's not control dependence, it's a control flow. That control flow needs to be respected, and there is a data dependence across these two. Because of these two, the data dependence and the control flow, there is a control dependence that is getting created between printing of a of 9, this 2a of 9, and printing of second loop %d II, although these are totally data independent statements. So this occurs multiple times and we have to be careful about that, and therefore you will not see second loop being printed before 2a of 9 getting printed, right? So 2a of 9 will be over, then only all of the second loop 0 to 9 are going to get printed. Now let's come to the third part, which is 3. This 3 does not have any data dependence, and as far as control is concerned, it just needs to follow the control flow of a particular device on which the compiler wants it to be. Compiler figures out that it does not have any data dependence, and maybe the GPU device is already busy doing a lot of work, whereas CPU is not really busy. It has so far printed only one, it has only one task. So let me push this to the CPU, to the host. And therefore on the CPU side, you have work which is printing 1, printing 3. On the GPU side, first loop to be printed, then 2a of 9 equal to 9, and then the second loop to be printed. This is the work to be given to the GPU. All of this is happening sequentially on the GPU. 1 and 3 are happening sequentially on the CPU. And therefore, the output that you expect is some interleaving of these two. It so happens that most probably you will see 1 and 3 getting printed. There is a little unexpected output, but you will see that 1 and 3 getting printed without any without any intervening 2. After that, the first loop is going to get printed, then 2 is going to get printed, and then the second loop. Right? So this sequential ordering needs to be maintained because it's on the same device. This sequential ordering is also on the same device, And as far as these two are concerned, there will be some interleaving between the two outputs. Right? So that is what is the expected output. So I hope this part is clear. If you just look at the code and you run it sequentially, then we expect 1 first loop, 2 second loop, 3 as the output, and definitely 1, 2, 3 to be in that particular order. But because of this data dependence and the compiler's decision to move 2 to the GPU and 1 and 3 to the CPU, you can see such an output. In fact, that is the output I got on a Aqua cluster, which you have to understand. And therefore, when we are performing certain operations using kernels, you have to be careful that some operations might actually be going to the GPU, and therefore interleaving of these outputs can happen. Can you force a particular order onto these? Yes, that is possible, and we'll study those constructs a little later. But yes, it is possible to follow a certain output. But in such cases, what is going to happen is that only one device is likely to be busy, at least for the most part. So the compiler tries to load balance the devices as much as possible, which is what it should be doing. So don't blame the compiler. Compiler is doing its job. In fact, it's good. It's a good compiler, in my opinion. But yeah, it does give you a surprise, which you should be careful about. Once you start getting this into your mind that things are independent, there is no data dependence, therefore this is going to be in a different device, etc., things will be easier to understand. All right. So if you have understood this, then you should be able to see that this behavior that we just saw, it looks a little non-deterministic, right? So I don't know if the second kernel is going to be on the CPU or GPU and so on, whether it is going to be sequential kernel or not. So that information we need to obtain from, we can get from the PGCC compiler. So the compiler can tell you that, oh, I am taking such and such decision. So from this output, we'll be able to get whether it is going to happen on the CPU or GPU sequentially or parallel, etc. So that is this -m info equal to Excel output. For example, for our code, I might see an output like this. In fact, in one of the earlier parts, I had grayed out a small couple of lines of such an output. Now let's understand this mechanism, that what is the meaning of all of this. So let's go back to our, so I'm going to move this, I'm going to need this space. So let me show you the program again. This is the program which is, I have as array of 10 declared, then pragma ACC kernels. And I'm going to print 1, then inside the loop, this is the first loop. Then there is a printf2 with data dependence, and this is a commented printf2 without a data dependence. Then there is this second loop, and then I'm going to print 3. Then the hash pragma ACC kernels finishes. And then there are line numbers corresponding to which there is some output. Let's try to understand that. And just to make things clear, I'm going to copy this this output which is given by PGCC to the corresponding line here. For example, here. So line 7 is the starting of the block which consists of this ACC kernels. What does the compiler say? The compiler says that, well, this A of I is going to be currently, well, okay. So A of I is on one device and it might be required on the other device. So let me copy that array from one device to the other, right? So therefore it automatically generates the code to copy the data from one device to the other, right? And it also checks if it is already present or not. And if it is not present, then it copies it. For example, this A of 10 is allocated on the CPU, right? Inside main, on the stack of main, we have allocated this 10 element array. That should be moved to the GPU if you want such a processing to happen, right? So that code generation happens. There is a small caveat here, which I will not come to now because we are going to study this at length later. this copy out and copy in, this might become a little confusing, but we'll study that a little later. Don't worry about that right now. And even if you know the meaning of copy out now, um, hold on to it for maybe a couple of lectures. What is this A of colon? It just says that A is an array and colon is the range which is specified. X colon Y is the syntax. When X colon Y is all of the array, then it becomes 0 colon 10. Right? The 10 is 1 plus the last element, and therefore which can be actually optionally specified. So you just specify colon and that will be okay. So this particular syntax we will be able to use, by the way, copy out in parenthesis A of 0 colon 10 or simply colon, and that will copy the array from one device to the other. So all of this will be doing as we move to the data constructs. So we'll with that, so there is some copying happening because we want the array to be available onto different devices. Then comes the next part that the kernel is talking about is line number 9. Sorry, the PGCC compiler talks about is line number 9. It doesn't say anything about line number 8. What does that mean? That means that it is not doing anything with respect to accelerating that particular printer. That means that it is running on the host. That means printf1 is being printed by the host sequentially. At line number 9, it says loop is parallelizable, generating Tesla code. What is Tesla? Tesla is a family of GPU processors. So it is generating code for that particular processor. You can decide different backend using PGCC's command line parameter -ta equal to Tesla. It will generate Tesla code. If you say -ta equal to something else, it will generate code for that something else, and so on. So this for loop, it tried to identify, it found out that loop is parallelizable. It did some analysis of this loop. So that analysis we will not be able to learn in this course. But imagine that at least with a hand wavy argument, you will be able to figure out that A of I equal to I seems to be a nicely parallel thing. There is no dependence, loop carry dependence, etc. And therefore it will be able to parallelize this loop. It generates the Tesla code. What does that mean? That it is going to run on the GPU or the accelerator. For generating this kernel, which is running on the GPU, it needs to specify what is the number of gangs, what is the number of workers per gang, what is the number of vector length or vector lanes per worker. So all of that needs to be specified or identified. So well, in this case it is okay. It tries to identify that okay, these are 10 threads, so I just require one particular vector and one gang is sufficient, and therefore it generates code corresponding to this. What is this 32? This is the 32 that I was talking about, which is the worker size or the warp size, which is by default 32. That's the minimum SIMD length of execution unit on the GPU. So for 10, this 32 suffices. If, for example, you change that 10 to 100, right, then we will require 128 to be the number of, the vector size. So this means that, and in the context of GPUs, those of you who are aware of the terminology, we said that gang is similar to thread block, and this vector is going to be equal to the number of threads within the thread block. So in this case, we generate one gang, one thread block, having one warp or one worker having 32 threads. So that is what, that suffices for our purpose because there are only 10 iterations in this loop. Then comes line number 30, which has this data dependence on A of 9, and PGCC compiler says that accelerator serial kernel generated. This is where it is actually generating a serial code, but running on the OpenACC, running on the GPU, right, running on the accelerator. And this it decides because there is a data movement which it tries to avoid. And therefore, again, it generates the Tesla code, and yeah, line number 14 is anyway commented, so that is not causing any issue. Then it comes to line number 16. Again, the loop is parallelizable, it generates Tesla code, and again it generates the ACC loop gang vector 32, and so on. Then it comes to line number 20. Again, there is printf3 without any dependence on any of what is happening on the GPU, and therefore it does not do anything, in the sense that it decides that this printf3 will be run on CPU on the host, and therefore it does not give any information using this -m info command. And therefore we can deduce that printf1 and printf3 are actually the codes running on the CPU, right? So by looking at this output, you will be able to figure out what is happening to your code, how the behavior is going to be when the program is run. So therefore this -m info command is going to be useful when things are easy, when things are clear. You don't have to worry about this output. But when you have a mix of sequential and parallel and you leave it to the compiler using this kernel's command, then you should be careful. All right. So just to show you a slightly different output, when we had this, when we don't have this data dependence and we have this 2, so now I have commented line number 13 and uncommented line number 14, then the output that gets generated is, as far as this is concerned, it's the same. At line number 9, the code is parallelizable, printf1 is happening on the host, and suddenly it does not have that output which was there for line number 13. I'll just go back to that code one slide, where there was something written for line number 13, right, which is not there now. That portion is missing because it finds out that 2 is anyway going to have no dependence, and therefore it goes to the CPU, and therefore 1, 2, 3 get printed on the CPU. As far as line 16 is loop is concerned, that is again parallelizable. And note that I have tried changing this from 10 to 100, and therefore it has generated the number of threads per block, or the number of vector lengths per gang equal to 128. Right? There are limits on how much it can go. For example, if you take this to, let's say, 5000, does this mean that the vector length will be 5000? No, that won't be the case. It needs to, there is a limit on what the, depending upon the GPU, typical limit is 1024 as the vector length. So what happens when you have 5000 loop? Well, then you get into the number of vector lengths per gang remains fixed, but the number of gangs keep changing. So you will generate more gangs, more thread blocks to fit that particular number of iterations. Okay, so one small point which I have not really talked about is what is this block idx.x, what is this thread idx.x. These are CUDA variables which define what is the ID of a particular gang or a particular thread block. Right? So these are actually parameter variables which you can use inside the CUDA code. So block ID will go from, if there are, let's say, 5 gangs or 5 thread blocks, then block idx.x will go from 0 to 4. Thread idx.x is the thread ID within a particular gang, right? That is the vector length within a particular gang. For example, if the vector length is 128, thread idx.x will go from 0 to 127. For our part, we are not really going to require it in OpenACC, but since the output does show that, and you might wonder what that is, therefore just for completeness sake I'm mentioning, but you don't have to worry about this part at all, unless you are combining OpenACC and CUDA code in the same program, right? So that is also possible, that you can have OpenACC as well as CUDA into the code. So that is a little advanced, so we don't have to worry about it in this course. All right, so some notes on this kernel, similar to some notes that we had for parallel. If I don't specify the async clause, so you can specify hash pragma acc kernels async, then the kernels end with a barrier. That is, at the end of the kernel's block, there is a barrier, otherwise there is none. And different restrictions that we had for the parallel, that you cannot jump inside the parallel. Similarly, you cannot jump inside the parallel kernel's region. You cannot jump out of it. You should have maximum one if clause, etc. So all of that also applies to the kernel's block. And This is a homework exercise which I am leaving for you, where the code is again similar, but I'm modifying it to make it little more complicated. So there is this initialization of a of 10. There is an array of 10 integers. Then I have an async clause, and that should specify that the kernels are not going to be asynchronous, not going to be synchronous. This doesn't mean that there is no barrier at this stage. That this is one kernel and then this is another kernel, and therefore these can happen in parallel. No, that doesn't mean that. This async clause is talking about the barrier here. So that means that printf5, which is going to be anyway printed by the host because it is outside the pragma SEC, this can happen in parallel to all these kernels. Right? So that is what it means. There is no barrier. Otherwise, the barrier without async, this 5 would always be printed after all the kernels within this block are over. That means after 1, 2, 3, 4, everything gets printed, then only 5 get printed. But with this async, 5 can get printed upright. So that is one part. Then there is this variable which I have declared within the kernels block. This is also allowed, and by default, it means that sum is a shared variable across all the threads which might be running. I print 1, then there is a loop which is reasonably parallel. There is some small thing with respect to plus equal to, and as you can imagine from our OpenMP days, that this is going to be amenable to reduction. And since we are talking about a kernels clause, this reduction is likely to get applied automatically. This reduction is likely to get applied automatically by the compiler. So it will figure out that there is some plus equal to happening onto a shared variable, and therefore this is amenable to reduction, and it will generate a reduction code. Right? Does that mean that the programmer does not have any control over it? Well, programmer will also have a reduction clause control over it, similar to what we have in OpenMP. It's just that we are talking about the magical world where, remember your boss, where everything is being handled by the compiler, right? So there should be a reduction clause, and -m info should tell you if it is getting reduced or not, but this is going to happen on the GPU, on the accelerator. Then this to sum, this is the tricky part. Whether the compiler is going to compile it, run it on the GPU or on the CPU, likely to be on the GPU, but you should be careful as a sequential serial kernel. Then again, this is going to be a reduction. Well, this is not a reduction. This is going to be actually a parallel, completely parallel code where a of I is changing, that the right hand side is fixed. So that will be another kernel which is getting generated. Then there is 3 which is getting printed. Now whether it is going to get printed on the GPU or CPU, that you have to think about. Then there is a simple printf that is again fully parallel, and then there is again one printf that is being done sequentially. So you have to think about what are the possible outputs for this code. And if you have any confusion, if there is a mismatch with respect to your expectations and what Aqua output, or somewhere else if you are running on your laptop, etc., then we can discuss that in our tutorial, or you can post on Moodle. Either way is fine. All right, so there are a few other constructs. I'll just take one more minute. There are a few other constructs. For example, you can run a code serially. Will this run on CPU or GPU? Well, it's not. Well, in this case, it is going to run always on the GPU. So you can run some code specifically on the GPU, but that will depend upon that you have used -acc in your command line argument. Right? If you use something else, let's say multi-core or something else, then it will run serially onto that device. But yeah, in our case, since we are using -acc in PGCC's command line, this serial will execute on the GPU. And then there are other parameters which you can specify to both parallel as well as kernels construct. As I mentioned earlier, for parallel, there is private as well as first private, and their meanings are exactly the same as we have on the OpenMP case. Like private is going to make a copy of each of these for each thread, right? So in this case, each vector lane is going to have one copy of that variable. First private is going to have again one copy that their initial value is going to get from the previous value. Right? right, just before the construct. So that completes kind of our discussion on to about the kernels class. In the next part, we are going to look at some more constructs, specifically about the data constructs, where we are now ready to move data from across CPU and GPU. See you then.